You need to get out of that seat immediately. Someone like you doesn't belong on this plane. Get out! I told you to move this bag, now get off my plane!
Hey, put that down!
Are you serious? Who do you think you are? You look like you crawled out of a filthy place. Are you deaf and dumb? I don't care what you think. Stay out of my way. You listen to me. I will not tolerate this behavior.
You just ended your own career.
10 minutes later, she was begging. Have you ever watched someone destroy their entire life in under 10 minutes? Get your ass out of that seat, right now. The words didn't just land, they cut. Sharp, loud, final. The cabin went still. Not silent. Not completely. You could still hear the low hum of the engines idling outside. The faint click of a suitcase wheel somewhere behind row 3, a glass shifting on a tray in the galley. But inside that narrow space between rows, something snapped. Conversations died mid-sentence. Eyes lifted. Breaths paused. Brenda Collins stood over him, her jaw tight, lips pulled back just enough to show teeth. Not a smile. Never a smile. Her finger pointed past him, toward the rear of the aircraft, like she was directing traffic, not speaking to a human being. "Did you hear me?" she said, louder now. "This section isn't for you." The man didn't move. Marcus Reynolds sat in the wide leather seat like he had always belonged there. Shoulders relaxed, back straight. One hand resting lightly on the armrest, the other still holding a tablet that hadn't moved in the last 10 seconds. He looked up at her. Not fast, not slow, just steady. That look did something to her. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't fear. It was worse. It was calm. Brenda let out a short, dry laugh through her nose, shaking her head like she had already decided the story and didn't need any more facts. "Unbelievable," she muttered, loud enough for anyone within 10 feet to hear. "You people always think the rules don't apply to you." A man across the aisle shifted in his seat. A woman near the window lowered her sunglasses just enough to see better. No one said a word. Marcus still didn't move. He just watched her. That calm, unshaken, unbothered, felt like a challenge, like disrespect, like something she needed to crush. Brenda's hand shot out. She grabbed the leather weekender bag sitting beside him, not gently, not even pretending to be professional. She yanked it up like it weighed nothing and turned on her heel. "Let me make this easy for you," she said, already walking down the aisle. "You can sit where you actually belong." The bag swung once at her side. Then she let it go. It hit the aisle hard, a dull thud that echoed louder than it should have. A few people flinched. Marcus didn't. He stood, slowly. And when he stood, the space around him changed. He wasn't dressed like power. No suit, no polished shoes, just a black hoodie, worn jeans, sneakers that had seen better days. But height doesn't lie. Presence doesn't lie. At 6'2", broad shoulders filling the narrow aisle, he didn't look like someone who needed permission to be anywhere. "Put my bag down," he said. His voice was low, controlled, no edge, no heat, just certainty. Brenda froze for half a second. It was small, barely noticeable, a flicker across her face, something close to hesitation, maybe even doubt. Then it was gone. She turned back toward him, eyes narrowing, chin lifting. "Excuse me," she said. "I'm not moving," Marcus added, just as calm. "Put my bag down." The words didn't rise. They settled. Heavy. Final. Brenda dropped the bag. Not placed. Dropped. It hit the floor again, harder this time. She stepped closer. Too close, leaning in just enough that her shadow cut across his chest. You don't want to do this, she said, her voice dropping into something colder, sharper. Trust me. Behind her, in the galley, a young flight attendant stood frozen. Lily Adams, 27, 6 months into the job, a tray of glasses balanced in her hands, untouched. She had seen tension before, difficult passengers, raised voices, complaints about champagne temperature, seat angles, delayed departures. This was different. This felt wrong. Her fingers tightened around the tray. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Seniority mattered here. Reputation mattered. And Brenda Collins had both. Lily stayed where she was. Back in the aisle, Marcus sat down again. Just like that. Like nothing had happened. He reached for his tablet, turned it back on, scrolled once, twice. The dismissal hit harder than any insult. Brenda's nostrils flared. "I'm going to say this one more time," she snapped. "Louder now. Loud enough to carry. Loud enough to make sure everyone heard it. You either show me valid identification that proves you belong in this section, or I call ground security and have you removed from this aircraft." A pause. A breath held across the cabin. Marcus didn't look up right away. He finished reading whatever was on his screen, tapped once, locked it. Then, slowly, he reached up and removed the headphones resting around his neck, folding them carefully and placing them on the armrest beside him. Now he looked at her. "I'd like to speak to the captain," he said. Brenda blinked, then laughed, not amused, not surprised, just dismissive. "You don't get to make requests on my aircraft," she shot back. "You're a passenger. I'm the crew. I decide who sits where." Her finger lifted again, pointing past him. "And I'm telling you, you do not belong here." The word hung in the air. Belong? It landed heavier than anything else she had said. Marcus held her gaze, really looked at her. His breathing didn't change, not faster, not slower. "I'm not going anywhere," he said quietly. "Do what you need to do." Something inside Brenda snapped. Maybe it was the tone. Maybe it was the stillness. Maybe it was the simple fact that he refused to shrink. Her hand moved before her mind caught up. Fast. Sharp. She reached for the headphones on the armrest like she was grabbing something that didn't belong to him in the first place. Marcus reacted on instinct. A small movement. A pull back. His hand brushing lightly against her forearm as he avoided the grab. That was all it took. Brenda recoiled like she had been struck. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened. Then her arm swung. The sound cracked through the cabin. Loud, clean, unmistakable. A slap. It echoed off leather and wood and glass, bouncing through the narrow space like a gunshot. Lily dropped the tray. Glass shattered against the galley floor. Marcus's head turned slightly with the impact. A red mark bloomed across his cheek. For a moment, everything stopped. No one moved. No one spoke. Brenda stood there, chest rising and falling, finger already pointing again, voice shaking, not with fear, but with fury. "Don't you ever put your hands on me," she said. "I saw what you did. You grabbed me." Her tone shifted mid-sentence. Controlled, measured, practiced. "I have every right to defend myself." She straightened her uniform, smoothed her hair. "I'm calling security," she added, voice now steady, almost rehearsed. "You're getting off this plane." Marcus didn't answer. He didn't argue. He didn't even look angry. He just reached slowly into the pocket of his hoodie. 2 fingers. Deliberate. Unhurried. Brenda took a step back. He pulled out his phone. The screen was already on. A red dot blinked in the corner. Recording. The timer read 14 minutes, And counting. He set it face up on the armrest, tapped the screen once, then looked at her, and spoke. Soft, cold, precise. "Everything you just did," he said, "is right there. 14 minutes and counting." The red timer blinked like a heartbeat. Steady, unforgiving. Brenda Collins stared at the phone. For a second, something cracked beneath the surface. Not guilt, not regret. Something colder. Calculation. She inhaled slowly, straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin. Then she smiled. Not soft, not nervous. A hard, practiced smile. The kind worn by people who had survived every complaint, every warning, every close call, and walked away untouched. "Record whatever you want," she said, voice smooth now, almost bored. "When security gets here, we'll see who they believe." Her eyes flicked down at Marcus's hoodie, his worn sneakers, the absence of anything that looked like money or status. "A senior crew member," she continued, turning slightly so her voice carried, "or some random guy who forced his way into a restricted section." Random. The word landed, heavy and deliberate. Across the aisle, a man shifted in his seat, clearing his throat, but saying nothing. A woman near the window looked down at her hands, pretending to adjust a bracelet that didn't need adjusting. The silence wasn't empty. It was loaded, thick with the quiet decisions people make when they choose not to get involved. In the galley, Lily Adams didn't move. Her hands hovered over the broken glass on the floor, dustpan tilted, pieces trembling against the metal edge. Her chest felt tight, too tight, like the air had thinned without warning. She had seen everything. Every second. The tone, the accusation, the bag hitting the floor, the reach, the flinch, the slap. There had been no attack, no threat. Just a line crossed. Clearly. Completely. Her eyes flicked to Marcus. He hadn't raised his voice once, hadn't stood aggressively, hadn't done anything that matched the story Brenda was already preparing to tell. Lily swallowed. Her grip tightened on the handle of the dustpan. "Say something." The thought came sharp, urgent. "Say something now." But another voice followed just as fast. "Don't." She had heard the stories. Everyone had. Brenda Collins didn't just have seniority. She had influence, connections, the kind that didn't show up on org charts, but decided careers anyway. Last year, a junior attendant, Rachel, had disagreed with Brenda during a briefing. Nothing dramatic, just a suggestion about seating protocol. 2 weeks later, Rachel was reassigned to cargo operations in a regional hub nobody wanted. Official reason: team alignment. Everyone knew what it meant. Lily's throat tightened. Her eyes dropped. The dustpan lowered. She said nothing. Back in the cabin, Brenda turned sharply and walked toward the intercom panel near the galley, heels striking the floor in quick, controlled beats. Not rushed. Not frantic. Intentional. She pressed the button. Her entire posture shifted. Her shoulders softened. Her head tilted slightly. Her voice, when it came, was different. Higher. Lighter. Fragile. "Ground operations. This is Senior Attendant Collins on tail number Alpha Sierra 72, she said, each word measured, carefully placed. "I need security at the aircraft immediately." A pause. Her hand rested lightly on the panel, fingers steady. "We have an unruly passenger in the forward cabin, refusing to comply with crew instructions." Another pause. Then softer. Lower, as if confiding something serious. He became physically aggressive. He grabbed my arm. "I feel unsafe." The words hung there, manufactured, polished, perfect. "Please send someone now." She released the button. The shift was instant. Her shoulders squared again, her chin lifted. The softness vanished like it had never been there. She turned back toward the cabin. Calm, composed, victimized. A performance so seamless it would have convinced anyone who hadn't seen what actually happened. Marcus watched her the entire time, didn't interrupt, didn't react. His eyes followed her movements the way someone watches a clock tick down to something inevitable. The phone on the armrest continued recording. 14 minutes, 48 seconds, 49, 50. Every second another layer of truth she couldn't take back. Brenda stopped a few feet away from him, arms crossing again, reclaiming her position. "You should have just moved," she said, almost conversational now. This didn't have to go this far. Marcus tilted his head slightly, studied her. Not angry, not surprised, just observing. "You're still talking," he said quietly, glancing once at the phone, then back at her. The reminder landed. Brenda's jaw tightened for a fraction of a second. Then she forced a small laugh. "Go ahead," she said. "Keep recording. It's not going to save you." Behind her, the cabin door creaked open. Footsteps, heavy, measured. 2 figures stepped inside. Ground security. One older, late 50s, grey at the temples, face calm, unreadable. Years of experience written in the way he moved. Slow, deliberate, never rushed. The other younger, early 30s, tense, alert. One hand resting near his radio, like he expected trouble before he even saw it. Brenda moved immediately, intercepted them before they took 2 steps forward. "Thank you for coming so quickly," she said, stepping into their path, voice still carrying that carefully crafted tremor. "The passenger is right there." She pointed toward Marcus without looking at him. "He forced his way into this section," she continued, words flowing now, confident, rehearsed. "I asked him multiple times to move. He refused. Then he grabbed me. The younger officer's posture stiffened. The older one, his badge read Sullivan, didn't react. He just listened, eyes steady, face neutral." Brenda gestured again, more animated now. "I had to defend myself," she added. "He's been hostile ever since. I want him removed immediately." Sullivan nodded once, slow, measured. Then he stepped past her, walked down the aisle, each step unhurried. He stopped in front of Marcus, looked at him, really looked, not at the hoodie, not at the sneakers, at him. "Sir," he said, voice calm, even. "I'm Officer Sullivan with ground security. I'm going to need to see some identification." Marcus didn't hesitate. No sudden movement, no resistance. He reached into his back pocket, pulled out his wallet, opened it, handed over his driver's license. Sullivan took it, glanced down, then back up at Marcus, then down again. Something changed, small, subtle but real. A pause, just a fraction longer than necessary. His eyes lingered on the name. Marcus Reynolds. Sullivan handed the license back. Didn't say anything, didn't ask another question. Instead, he turned slightly away from the aisle, lifting his radio. "Ground Ops, this is Sullivan," he said quietly. "I need a client verification on this aircraft." The cabin held its breath. Silence stretched. 10 seconds. 15. 20. The radio crackled. Sullivan listened. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Then slowly, very slowly, his posture shifted. He lowered the radio, turned back toward the aisle. But he wasn't looking at Marcus anymore. He was looking at Brenda, and the expression on his face had changed. Not confusion, not uncertainty. Something heavier, something closer to disbelief. And just behind that, anger. Controlled, contained, but unmistakable. Brenda felt it before she understood it. Her smile faltered. "What?" she said, voice thinner now. What did they say? Sullivan didn't answer immediately. He took one step forward, then another, closing the distance between them. The younger officer glanced between them, sensing the shift, but not yet understanding it. Sullivan stopped directly in front of Brenda. His voice, when it came, was still calm, but different, colder. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm going to need you to step aside." Brenda blinked, confused. "No, you don't understand," she said quickly. "He's the problem. He needs to be removed." Sullivan didn't move, didn't raise his voice, didn't repeat himself. He just looked at her. And in that look was something final. Something that hadn't been there a moment ago. Something that told her, without a single word, that whatever she thought was happening wasn't. Not anymore. He's not going anywhere. The words didn't come from Marcus. They came from Sullivan. Calm, flat. Absolute. Brenda blinked like she hadn't heard him right. "Excuse me?" Her voice cracked on the last word, just slightly, just enough to betray the first hint of something slipping. Sullivan didn't look at her when he answered. His eyes stayed on Marcus for half a second longer, then shifted back. "Ma'am, step aside." There was no aggression in it, no volume, but it carried weight, the kind that doesn't invite debate. The younger officer shifted his stance, uncertainty flickering across his face. He glanced at Sullivan, then at Marcus, then back at Brenda. Something in the room had changed, and he felt it without knowing why. Brenda forced a laugh. Too quick, too sharp. No, you don't understand. He assaulted me. I told you. He grabbed my arm. He refused to comply. That's enough," Sullivan said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The interruption landed like a door closing. Brenda stopped mid-sentence. Her mouth stayed open for a second, words caught somewhere between intention and reality. Her eyes darted. Sullivan, the younger officer, Marcus, the phone on the armrest still blinking red. 14 minutes, 59 seconds, 15 minutes. The timer rolled over. Sullivan turned his head slightly. "Officer Diaz," he said, nodding once toward Brenda. "Stay with her." Diaz stepped closer to Brenda without touching her, his presence tightening the space around her, like a boundary she couldn't see but could feel. Sullivan walked back to Marcus. Different now, subtle but clear. "Mr. Reynolds," he said, voice softer, respectful in a way it hadn't been before. "I apologize for the disturbance." Brenda's head snapped toward them. "What?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He watched Sullivan the same way he had watched Brenda earlier. Measured, quiet, assessing. "Is there anything you need from us right now?" Sullivan asked. Marcus leaned back slightly in his seat. The movement was small, but it changed everything. He wasn't the man being questioned anymore. He was the man being consulted. Brenda took a step forward before Diaz shifted, blocking her path just enough to stop her without making it obvious. "What is going on?" she demanded, her voice rising again, the control she'd carefully constructed starting to fracture. "He's the one causing the problem. You need to remove him." Sullivan didn't even look at her. Marcus's gaze drifted to the phone on the armrest, the red light still blinking, then back to Sullivan. "I need her off my aircraft," he said. 3 words, no emphasis, no anger. But they landed like concrete. The cabin felt it. Every person watching, pretending not to watch, felt it. Brenda froze. Her lips parted, closed, opened again. "You're what?" she said, the words stumbling over each other. "No, that doesn't make any sense. Look at him." She stopped herself. Too late. The sentence hung there, unfinished but understood. Look at him. Sullivan's jaw tightened. For the first time, he turned to face her fully. "Ma'am," he said, each word deliberate. "This aircraft is registered to Horizon Axis Group, a beat. Mr. Marcus Reynolds is the owner and principal client on file." The words didn't echo. They didn't need to. They dropped. Heavy. Final. Brenda's face drained. Not slowly. Instantly. Like someone had pulled the color out of her. Her eyes flicked to Marcus. Really looked this time. Not at the hoodie. Not at the shoes. At him. And for the first time since she stepped onto the aircraft, she saw something she hadn't allowed herself to see before. Power. Real power. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that waits. The kind that doesn't need permission. "No," she said, shaking her head, a small, frantic motion. That can't be right. He can't be." She stopped again, because even she heard it, the way it sounded. The implication. The truth she couldn't finish out loud. Marcus didn't look at her. Didn't acknowledge her at all. He had already moved past her. His attention shifted back to Sullivan. "That's all I need," he said quietly. Sullivan nodded once. Understood. Behind him, Diaz straightened slightly, his confusion replaced by something sharper, awareness catching up to reality. Brenda's breathing grew louder. Shallow. Uneven. "This is a mistake," she said. But the certainty was gone. "There's been some kind of misunderstanding. I was just doing my job. I was following protocol." Her voice reached for authority. Found none. From the galley, something moved. Lily Adams stepped forward. Slow. Careful. Every step felt heavier than the last. Her hands were empty now. The broken glass cleaned up. But her fingers still trembled. She had watched everything. Felt everything. Said nothing. Until now. "Officers," she said, her voice barely above a whisper at first. No one turned. Then again. Stronger. "I need to tell you what actually happened." The words cut through the tension like a crack in glass. Sullivan turned. Diaz turned. Brenda's head snapped toward her, eyes wide, something close to panic flashing for the first time. "Lily, don't," Brenda said quickly, stepping toward her. "You don't understand the situation." But Lily didn't stop. She couldn't. Not now. She stepped fully into the aisle, shoulders tight, chin lifting just enough to hold her voice steady. "I was in the galley the entire time," she said, looking directly at Sullivan. "I saw everything." Brenda's voice dropped, sharp and venomous. "You need to be very careful what you say next." Lily's throat tightened. Her hands curled slightly at her sides. Fear was still there. Loud, heavy, but something else pushed through it. Something stronger. "I am," she said. Then she took a breath and told the truth. Mr. Reynolds was already seated when Miss Collins approached him. She began. He showed her his booking confirmation. She dismissed it. She took his bag without permission and tried to move it. Sullivan's eyes didn't leave her. Diaz's posture shifted again, listening now, really listening. Lily's voice steadied as she continued. He stood up and asked her to stop. She dropped his bag on the floor. Then she came back and demanded he leave again. Brenda shook her head, a sharp, frantic motion. That's not what happened." Lily didn't look at her. Couldn't. If she did, she might stop. "She reached for his personal belongings," Lily said, each word clearer now. He pulled back. "That's all. He didn't grab her. He didn't touch her in any aggressive way." The cabin held its breath. "She slapped him," Lily finished. "Full force. Then she said she was going to report him for assault." Silence. Not empty. Not passive. Heavy. Alive. Brenda took a step forward, her face twisting, anger breaking through the fear. You've been here 6 months. 6 months. You don't know how this works. You don't know what you're doing. Her voice rose, sharp, cracking at the edges. When this is over, I will make sure you never work another flight. That's enough. Sullivan again. This time harder. Final. Brenda stopped. The words died in her throat. The authority she had leaned on all morning. Gone. Replaced by something else. Something colder. Accountability. Sullivan stepped forward, close enough now that Brenda had to tilt her head slightly to look at him. "Ma'am," he said, his tone no longer neutral, no longer distant. "You need to stop talking." And for the first time since this began, she did. The cockpit door opened with a soft click. Not loud, not dramatic, but in that moment, it might as well have been a gunshot. Every head turned. Captain Daniel Brooks stepped into the aisle, headset still hanging around his neck, one hand resting briefly against the frame of the door as if he needed a second to take in what he was walking into. He had been listening. Not everything. Not every word. But enough. Enough to know this wasn't a routine delay, not a seating issue, not a difficult passenger. Something had gone wrong. Badly. His eyes moved quickly. Brenda, pale, rigid. Lily, shaking but standing firm. Sullivan, calm but no longer neutral. And then Marcus, seated, still, unmoved. There was a pause, short, sharp, the kind that only exists right before a decision is made. "What's going on?" Brooks asked. No edge, no accusation, just controlled authority. Sullivan stepped forward first. "Captain, we've verified the principal client on this aircraft." He didn't look at Brenda when he said it. "Mr. Marcus Reynolds." Brooks didn't react immediately, but something in his face tightened. A flicker. Recognition. Then he looked directly at Marcus. Really looked. Not at the hoodie, not at the posture, at the man. And in that second, everything aligned. Brooks exhaled slowly. Not relief, not frustration, understanding. He turned. Not to Marcus, to Brenda. "Miss Collins," he said. Her name sounded different coming from him. Not familiar, not collegial. Official. She straightened instinctively, like muscle memory kicking in even as everything else slipped. "Captain, I can explain," she started. "No," he said. The word cut clean. No volume, no force, but final. Her mouth closed. Brooks stepped closer, measured, controlled, every movement precise. "I've heard enough," he continued, "and I've been briefed. A beat. Based on what I have heard and what has been confirmed, you are relieved of duty on this flight." The words didn't land all at once. They unfolded. Slow, unavoidable. Brenda blinked. Once. Twice. What?" she said, the composure she had clung to all morning finally slipping. "Captain, that's not. I was following protocol. He was non-compliant." "That is not what happened," Brooks said. Not louder, just clearer. Stronger, her voice faltered. "But that is not what happened," he repeated. Now there was something in his tone. Not anger, disappointment. Sharp or controlled, cutting deeper than shouting ever could. Brenda's hands tightened at her sides. Her eyes flicked. Sullivan, Diaz, Lily, Marcus. No one moved. No one stepped in. No one supported her. The silence turned on her. Brooks didn't break eye contact. "You have 60 seconds, he said. Another pause. "Collect your belongings and deplane." The number sat there. Not negotiable. Not flexible. A countdown. "Captain, please," she tried again, voice softer now, thinner. "If you just let me explain, that was not a request." Now there was steel, hard, Unyielding. 60 seconds, he repeated. Starting now. Brenda stood there, frozen. Her eyes moved quickly, searching for something, someone to anchor to. Nothing. No one. She looked at Marcus. For a moment, just a moment, like she might say something. Apologize. Argue. Beg. Marcus didn't look back. He had already turned away. Tablet back in his hands, like she had already ceased to exist. That hurt more than anything. Brenda swallowed. Hard. Then she moved. Fast. Too fast. The composure was gone. The polished control replaced by something frantic, uneven. She turned toward the galley, grabbing her bag with a sharp motion, nearly knocking into the counter as she did. A glass rattled. Almost fell. She caught it just in time, hands shaking. Lily stepped back instinctively, giving her space. Their eyes met for half a second. Brenda's glare burned, not just anger, something deeper. Betrayal. You did this, she whispered, low, venomous, meant only for Lily. Lily didn't respond. Couldn't. She just held her ground. Brenda turned away. Walked down the aisle. Not the controlled, confident stride from earlier. This was different. Uneven. Her heels clicked out of rhythm now. Too fast. Too sharp. Each step louder than it should have been. Passengers shifted as she passed. Not openly. Subtle, but noticeable. A slight lean away. Averted eyes. A tightening of shoulders. The room had changed, and she felt it. At the front of the cabin, the door was already open. Air from outside slipped in, cool, thin, carrying the faint smell of jet fuel and cold asphalt. She stopped at the top of the air stairs. Turned. For one last look. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. What could she say? There were no words left that would matter. Inside the cabin, no one moved. No one spoke. Marcus didn't look up. Brooks stood still, arms behind his back. Sullivan and Diaz remained in place. Lily stood near the galley, hands still, eyes steady. Brenda looked at them all, then back at Marcus. One last time. He didn't move, didn't acknowledge her, didn't give her anything. The silence was the answer. She turned, stepped out. The door closed behind her, a soft sound, but final. The cabin held still for a few seconds longer. Then Brooks exhaled. A slow release. He turned back toward Marcus, walked down the aisle. Each step measured. Intentional. When he reached him, he stopped. Not looming. Not imposing. Just present. "Mr. Reynolds," he said. "Different now. Respect. Clear. Unmistakable. I sincerely apologize for what occurred." Marcus looked up. For the first time since the door closed, their eyes met. Brooks didn't look away. Didn't rush. Didn't over-explain. He let the moment stand, then added, "This should never have happened." A beat. Marcus studied him, long enough to matter, then gave a small nod. Not forgiveness, not dismissal. Acknowledgement. "Make sure it doesn't happen again," he said. Quiet, but it carried. Not just to Brooks, to the room, to everyone listening. Brooks nodded once, understood. Behind him, Sullivan stepped back slightly, giving space. Diaz followed. The tension didn't disappear. It shifted, settled into something else, something heavier. Consequences. Marcus reached for his phone, the recording still running. 15 minutes, 43 seconds. He tapped the screen. Stopped it. The red light disappeared. But what it had captured remained. Permanent. Unchangeable. He placed the phone down, picked up his tablet, and just like that, he moved on. Around him, the cabin slowly began to breathe again. Soft. Careful. like people waking up from something they didn't fully understand, but knew they wouldn't forget. In the galley, Lily exhaled, a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Her hands were still shaking, but she was still standing. And that mattered. Outside on the tarmac, Brenda Collins stood alone. The early morning air cut colder now. The aircraft door sealed shut in front of her, the engines beginning to hum, and for the first time in a long time, she had nowhere left to go. The engines rose from a low hum to a steady, rising thrum. The aircraft pushed back from the gate with quiet precision, tires rolling over cold concrete, lights reflecting off the polished fuselage like nothing had happened. Inside, everything looked normal again. But it wasn't. The silence had changed. It wasn't tension anymore, it was awareness. Passengers shifted in their seats, slower now, more deliberate. A man who had pretended to read his newspaper lowered it halfway, eyes still fixed on Marcus. A woman near the window took a sip of champagne, but didn't taste it. Conversations returned, but softer, cautious, like people unsure how loud they were allowed to be after witnessing something they weren't supposed to see. Marcus didn't notice, or if he did, he didn't show it. He sat exactly as he had before. Tablet open, shoulders relaxed, breathing steady, as if the last 15 minutes hadn't happened at all. But they had, and somewhere deep beneath the stillness, something had shifted. Not anger. Not yet. Something colder, more precise. In the galley, Lily Adams poured coffee into a white porcelain cup. Her hands trembled slightly. The liquid rose to the rim, steady but close to spilling. She stopped just in time, set the pot down, exhaled. Her reflection caught in the stainless steel surface for a second, eyes wider than usual, shoulders still tight, posture not quite settled. "You okay?" The voice came from behind her. Soft. Careful. She turned. Captain Brooks stood just inside the galley entrance, arms crossed loosely, not imposing, not commanding. Just present. Lily nodded too quickly. "Yes, sir. I'm fine." He studied her for a second. "Not long. Just enough." "You did the right thing," he said. "No praise. No ceremony. Just fact." Lily swallowed. Her throat felt dry. "I almost didn't," she admitted, quieter now. Brooks didn't respond immediately. He looked past her for a moment, out toward the cabin, where Marcus sat alone in the same seat that had nearly triggered everything. "Most people don't," he said finally. Then he stepped back, gave her space. Lily looked down at the coffee cup in her hand. Steam rising. Warm. Real. Something small. Something grounding. She straightened, took a breath, then turned toward the cabin. Marcus didn't look up when she approached. He didn't need to. He already knew she was there. She stopped beside his seat, holding the cup with both hands now, just to steady them. "Mr. Reynolds," she said, voice controlled, but softer than before. "I brought you some coffee." He looked up, for the first time since everything ended. His expression had changed. Not by much, but enough. The edge was gone, replaced by something quieter, human. "Thank you, Lily," he said. He said her name, not guessing, not asking, knowing. She blinked, surprised. "You're welcome," she replied, setting the cup carefully on the table in front of him. Their eyes met for a brief second, and in that second, something passed between them. Recognition. Not of status, not of power, of choice. She nodded once, then stepped back, returned to the galley before the emotion could catch up to her. Marcus watched her go, then reached for the coffee. Held it. Didn't drink yet. Just felt the warmth in his hands. Grounding. Real. Then he set it down, reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone. The screen lit up. Notifications. Dozens. Emails. Messages. Missed calls. He ignored them all. Went straight to one name. Derek Williams. He pressed call. It rang once. Twice. Picked up on the second. "Marcus," Derek's voice came through, sharp, awake despite the early hour. "It's early." "What happened?" Marcus leaned back slightly in his seat. His voice didn't change. Calm. Measured. Controlled. "I need you to move on something," he said. A pause. Short. Focused. "I'm listening." Marcus didn't rush. He didn't dramatize. He laid it out. Piece by piece. The approach, the words, the bag, the slap, the lie, the recording, every detail. Clean, precise. No emotion. Just facts. On the other end of the line, Derek didn't interrupt. Didn't ask questions. He just listened. When Marcus finished, there was a longer pause. Then, "Send me the recording," Derek said. "I will." Another pause. Then Derek exhaled. Slow. Controlled. "I've watched you walk away from things like this before," he said. "More times than I can count." Marcus didn't respond. Because it was true. He had. Every time. Until now. "This one," Derek continued, his voice tightening just slightly, "you don't walk away from." Marcus's gaze drifted to the window, the runway sliding past, the city beyond it, still waking up, still unaware. "I wasn't planning to," he said. The words settled. Final. On the other end, Derek didn't hesitate. "Good," he said. "Then we do this right." Marcus nodded once, even though Derek couldn't see it. "What's the timeline?" Marcus asked. "Immediate," Derek replied. "We file an assault complaint with the airport authority. Full recording attached. Then we notify Skylux's legal department. Formal demand. 48 hours for response." Marcus listened, already ahead. "And internally?" he asked. "We force an investigation," Derek said. "Full employee history, prior complaints, patterns. We don't let them bury this." A beat. "And the contract?" Marcus asked. Derek didn't hesitate. "We put them on notice," he said. 12 million a year is leverage. Use it." Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. "Not anger. Focus." "Draft everything," he said. "I'll review before we land." "You'll have it," Derek replied. The line went quiet, but neither of them hung up yet. Then Derek added, "Quieter now. This isn't just about you." Marcus looked down at the phone, at his reflection in the dark screen. He knew. "Send me the file," Derek said again. Then the line clicked, disconnected. Marcus lowered the phone, placed it on the table, next to the coffee. Still untouched. Outside, the aircraft lifted, smooth, effortless, the ground falling away beneath them. Inside, nothing moved. But everything had already changed. Marcus reached for the coffee, took a sip, then set it down, and opened his tablet again. But this time, he wasn't reading. The aircraft leveled off above a thin layer of clouds, the sky opening into a pale blue that looked calm from a distance and unforgiving up close. Inside, the cabin lights softened. Service resumed, but nothing felt routine. Not really. Captain Brooks stepped back into the cockpit, the door sealing behind him with a quiet click that carried more weight than it should have. He removed his headset, placed it carefully on the console, then leaned forward, both hands resting on the edge of the panel. The co-pilot glanced over. Everything good back there. Brooks didn't answer right away. He stared at the instrument display, but he wasn't seeing numbers. He was seeing the last 10 minutes. The tone, the accusation, the slap, the look on Marcus Reynolds' face, calm, unmoved, and then those 3 words. "My aircraft." Brooks exhaled slowly. "No," he said. The co-pilot shifted slightly. "Bad passenger." Brooks shook his head once. No, he repeated. Quieter now. Bad decision. He straightened, reached for the intercom switch, paused, then let it go. Not yet. Timing mattered. Everything mattered now. In the cabin, Marcus sat still, but his attention had shifted. Not outward, inward. The tablet in his hand displayed a document, but the text blurred at the edges. Numbers, projections, acquisition timelines, all of it still there, still important, but no longer the priority. His phone buzzed once, then again, then again. He didn't look. Not yet. Across the aisle, the man with the newspaper finally folded it down completely. He leaned slightly toward Marcus, hesitated, then spoke. "Sir," he said, voice low, careful, like stepping into something he wasn't sure he belonged in. "I just want to say, that was handled with a lot of restraint." Marcus turned his head, met his eyes. The man was in his 60s. Clean suit, silver hair, the kind of face that had seen enough to recognize when something mattered. Marcus gave a small nod. "Thank you," he said. Nothing more. The man nodded back. That was enough. He returned to his seat. Didn't push further. Didn't ask questions, because something about Marcus made it clear this wasn't over. Not even close. In the galley, Lily rinsed a cup under warm water, the steady stream grounding her in something real. Her reflection in the metal surface looked different now. Not calmer. Stronger. A shadow moved behind her. She turned. Officer Sullivan stood at the entrance, hands resting loosely at his sides. "We'll be deplaning once we land," he said. "Reports already being filed." Lily nodded. "Okay." He studied her for a second. "You did the right thing," he said again. Different tones this time. Less reassurance, more acknowledgement. She let out a breath. "I almost didn't," she admitted. Sullivan's mouth tightened slightly. "Most people don't," he said. A beat. Then he added, "That's how this kind of thing keeps happening." The words lingered. Not accusatory, just true. Lily looked down at her hands, then back up. "I didn't want to be part of it," she said. Sullivan nodded once. "That's the line," he replied. He turned to leave. Paused. "Mr. Reynolds," he added, glancing toward the cabin. "He's going to make sure it doesn't get buried." Lily followed his gaze. Marcus sat exactly where he had been. Still. Focused. Unshaken. And for the first time, she understood something she hadn't before. This wasn't just a passenger. This was someone who could move things, change things. Outside, at 30,000 feet, the aircraft cut through open sky, leaving a clean white trail behind it. Inside, the consequences were just beginning. Marcus's phone buzzed again. This time, he picked it up. A message from Derek. Attachment received. Reviewing now. Drafts in progress. Another message followed seconds later. "We have exposure here. This won't stay contained." Marcus read it, then locked the screen. Set the phone down. He reached for his coffee again. Took a slower sip this time, then leaned back, closed his eyes for a brief second. Not to rest, to think, to organize, to decide. Because what happened on this aircraft wasn't isolated. It never was. It was a pattern, a system, one that depended on silence, on assumptions, on people choosing not to act. Marcus opened his eyes, reached for his phone again, scrolled, found another name. Vivian Reynolds. He pressed call. It rang once, twice. She picked up. "Marcus," her voice came through, sharp, awake, like she had already sensed something before he even spoke. What happened? He didn't ease into it, didn't soften it. He told her. Everything. The words, the tone, the slap, the recording, the lie. Silence on the other end. Not confusion. Not shock. Processing. Then, she put her hands on you, Vivian said. Not a question. A statement. Yes. Another pause. Short. Controlled. And then she lied about it, Vivian added. Yes. The silence that followed was different. Colder. More focused. Marcus? She said finally, her voice lowering, tightening. This doesn't stay private. He didn't answer immediately, because he already knew where this was going. His anonymity had always been intentional, strategic. It let him move without noise, without interference, without expectation. But this wasn't about convenience. How many times has she done this, Vivian continued, to someone who couldn't prove it? The question landed. Hard. He didn't need to answer. They both knew. People like her rely on that, she said. No proof, no consequences. Marcus looked out the window, clouds stretching endlessly below. Calm. Deceptive. You have the proof, Vivian said. Her voice didn't rise, it sharpened. You have the power, a beat. Use it. The words didn't push, they aligned, with something already there. Marcus closed his eyes again, just for a second, then opened them. Decision made. Call Sandra Cole, he said. On the other end, Vivian didn't hesitate. I already was going to, she replied. The line went quiet, but not empty. Purpose filled the space now. Marcus lowered the phone, placed it on the table, then reached for the tablet again. This time, the numbers came into focus, not because they mattered more, because everything now connected. The deal, the company, the aircraft, the incident. It wasn't separate. It was all part of the same system, and systems could be changed. In the cockpit, Brooks finally reached for the intercom, pressed the switch. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice came through the cabin. Steady, controlled. This is your captain speaking. A pause. We appreciate your patience earlier. We are now cruising at altitude and expect a smooth flight ahead. He stopped there. Didn't explain. Didn't justify. Because some things didn't need to be said out loud. The passengers listened, heard the words, but felt something else. That something had happened. Something real. Something that wasn't going away. Marcus didn't react. He just sat there. Calm. Still. But beneath it, everything was already in motion. By the time the aircraft began its descent, the story was already moving faster on the ground than it ever had in the air. In a glass-walled office overlooking Midtown Manhattan, Derek Williams stood at his desk, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, eyes fixed on 3 screens at once. The recording played on a loop, muted now. But he didn't need the audio anymore. He knew every frame, every word, every second. 14 minutes and 32 seconds. That was all it took. He paused the video at the exact moment of impact. Brenda's hand mid-swing, Marcus's head turning slightly. The freeze frame held there like evidence carved in stone. Send it, Derek said. Across the room, his associate didn't hesitate. The email was already drafted. To Skylux Aviation Legal Department. Subject line, immediate action required. Attachments, video file, transcript, formal notice. Derek read the opening line one last time, then nodded. Send it. The click of the keyboard echoed louder than it should have. There was no taking it back now. On another screen, a second document finalized. Formal complaint to Teterboro Airport Authority. Charge, assault. Supporting evidence, attached. A third document followed. Notice of contract review. Annual value, $12 million. Language, precise. Controlled, devastating. Derek exhaled slowly. Clock starts now, he said. Back in the sky, Marcus felt the shift before he saw it. His phone buzzed once, then again. He picked it up. Email sent. Another message followed. Press contact confirmed. He stared at the screen for a second longer than necessary, then locked it. Across from him, the man with the newspaper watched quietly. "You don't seem surprised," he said. Marcus glanced up. "I'm not," he replied. The man studied him, then nodded. "Figured as much," he said, leaning back. "Men like you don't get caught off guard. Not for long." Marcus didn't answer, because that wasn't entirely true. He had been caught off guard. Not by the insult. Not by the assumption. Those were familiar. What caught him was how easy it had been for her. How natural. How practiced. That was the part that stayed with him. In the galley, Lily leaned against the counter for just a second, letting her shoulders drop. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She hesitated, then checked it. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Almost. But something told her not to. "Hello? Is this Lily Adams?" The voice was professional. Direct. "Yes. This is Sandra Cole. I'm an investigative journalist. I believe you were present on a Skylux charter flight this morning." Lily froze. Her grip tightened on the phone. "How did you—" "We have the recording," Sandra said. "And your name came up." A pause. Short. "Careful. I'd like to ask you a few questions." Lily's heart started to pound. Fast. Loud. This was real, not just a moment, not just a decision. Consequences. Exposure. "Am I in trouble?" she asked. Sandra didn't answer right away. "No," she said finally. "But what you say next matters." Lily closed her eyes for a second, saw it again. The slap, the lie, the silence that followed, then her own voice breaking through it. "I told the truth," she said. "I know," Sandra replied. Another pause. "Are you willing to stand by it?" The question landed heavier than anything before it, because this wasn't about one moment anymore. This was about everything after. Lily opened her eyes, looked out toward the cabin, at Marcus, still seated, still calm, still unshaken, and she understood something. He had taken the first step, but he wouldn't be the only one affected. "No," she said quietly, then corrected herself. "Yes." Her voice steadied. "Yes, I will." Sandra didn't respond immediately, but when she did, there was something different in her tone. Respect. "Then we'll talk when you land," she said. The line clicked. Gone. Lily lowered the phone slowly. Her reflection stared back at her again. This time it didn't look uncertain. It looked decided. On the tarmac below, in a small office near the private terminal, a man sat staring at his computer screen like it had just betrayed him. Nathan Brooks, CEO of Skylux Aviation. 20 years building a brand on discretion, precision, control. He had opened the email 10 minutes ago. He hadn't moved since. The video played again, muted, but the silence was louder than sound. He watched Brenda's face, the words forming, the bag dropping, the hand rising, the impact. He leaned back slowly, both hands resting flat on the desk. His coffee sat untouched beside him, cold, forgotten. "Jesus," he muttered. Not disbelief, recognition. Because this wasn't just an incident. This was exposure. His phone rang. He stared at it. Didn't answer. It rang again. Then stopped. A second later it buzzed with a voicemail. He ignored it. Clicked replay. Watched again. Frame by frame. Like if he studied it long enough, it might change. It didn't. It only got worse. He reached for his phone. Scrolled. Found Marcus Reynolds. Pressed call. It rang once. Twice. Then, Mr. Brooks. Derek. Not Marcus. Professional. Controlled. Cold. Nathan swallowed. "I need to speak with Marcus," he said. "I'm afraid Mr. Reynolds isn't taking calls at this time," Derek replied. "All communication will go through me. A pause. Tight." "This is a serious situation," Nathan said. "I'm aware," Derek replied. Another pause. Then, "You've received our notice," Derek continued. "You have 48 hours to respond." Nathan leaned forward. "This doesn't need to escalate," he said quickly. "We can resolve this." Derek didn't hesitate. "It already has." Silence. Heavy. Final. The line went dead. Nathan lowered the phone slowly. For the first time in 20 years, he didn't know what to do. Back in the sky, the aircraft continued its descent. The city coming into view below. Sharp lines, defined edges, everything visible now. Marcus looked out the window, then back down at his phone. A new message. From Derek. "They're scrambling." He read it, then another. "Media interest confirmed." Another. "This won't stay quiet." Marcus locked the screen, set the phone down, and for the first time since the incident, a small shift crossed his face. Not satisfaction, not relief. Something else. Resolve. Because this was no longer about a seat, or a slap, or even one person. This was about something bigger, something deeper, something that had been happening long before this flight. And now it had proof. By the time the wheels touched down, the story had already outrun the plane. The landing was smooth, barely a bump. Tires kissed the runway and held. Reverse thrust engaged, a low roar pushing the aircraft forward into slowing momentum, the cabin tilting ever so slightly as gravity took over again. No applause, no conversation, just a quiet awareness moving through the space like a current. Marcus didn't look up. He didn't need to. His phone buzzed once, then again, then again. This time he checked. "Derek, we have confirmation. Internal review started. Legal team in panic mode." Another message followed seconds later. HR pulled her file. "You're going to want to see this." Marcus opened the attachment. 3 complaints, all from passengers of color. Different dates, different routes, same pattern. Dismissed. Closed. No action. His thumb hovered over the screen. Not surprised. That was the part that hit hardest. Not surprised. Across the aisle, the man with the newspaper leaned forward again, voice low. That wasn't the first time, was it? Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. The man nodded to himself. "Never is," he said quietly. The aircraft taxied toward the private terminal, engines humming lower now, controlled, precise. Outside, ground crews moved into position, orange vests catching the early light, guiding the plane into its final stop. Inside, the seatbelt sign remained on. No one rushed. No one stood. They all waited, because something told them this wasn't over. The aircraft came to a complete stop. Engines idled, then silence, the kind that feels deliberate. The door didn't open immediately. Instead, footsteps approached from the front. Captain Brooks stepped back into the cabin, not hurried, not casual, intentional. He stopped near Marcus's seat, didn't address the cabin, didn't perform. This wasn't for everyone. This was for one person. "The ground team is ready," he said quietly. "Security, legal, and operations." Marcus looked up, held his gaze. Brooks didn't look away. "They've been briefed," Brooks added. "A beat. And they're expecting you." Marcus nodded once. That was enough. Behind Brooks, Officer Sullivan reappeared, posture unchanged, but his presence sharper now. Not observational anymore. Procedural. "It'll be easier if we step off first," Sullivan said. Marcus stood, smooth, unrushed. The movement drew every eye in the cabin without effort. No announcement, no signal, just gravity. Real gravity. the kind that doesn't come from altitude. He reached for his bag, lifted it. Simple, ordinary, then stepped into the aisle. As he moved forward, the passengers shifted, subtle, respectful. No one spoke, no one stopped him, because something about the moment made it clear. This wasn't just a man leaving a plane, this was something else. At the front, the door opened. Cool air rushed in, fresh, sharp, real. Marcus stepped onto the air stairs, paused for half a second. Not hesitation, observation, then continued down. At the bottom, 3 people waited, 2 in suits, 1 in uniform. The suits stepped forward first. Mr. Reynolds, the older one said, extending his hand. David Harper, Sky Lux Legal. Marcus looked at the hand, then at the man. Didn't take it. Not yet. The second man spoke quickly. "We want to apologize for what happened on behalf of the company. This is not reflective of our standards." Marcus held up a hand. Small gesture, immediate effect. The word stopped, mid-sentence. "Not here," Marcus said. His voice wasn't raised. Didn't need to be. The air shifted. The men nodded. Understood. Behind them another figure approached. Sandra Cole, late 40s, sharp eyes, no wasted movement. She didn't rush, didn't intrude. She stopped a few feet away, waited. Marcus turned toward her. "You got it?" he asked. She nodded. Verified. Cross-checked. "It's clean. A beat. I want your consent before anything goes live." Marcus looked back at the aircraft, at the open door, at the space where everything had happened, then back at her. "Release it," he said. No hesitation, no condition. Sandra held his gaze for a second longer, then nodded once. Understood. She stepped back, already moving, already working. The first domino had fallen. Back inside the aircraft, the passengers finally began to move. Slowly. Carefully. The man with the newspaper stood, gathering his things. He glanced once more toward the front, then shook his head. "About time," he muttered under his breath. In the galley, Lily stood still. She hadn't moved, not since Marcus stepped off. Her phone buzzed again. "Sandra, we'll need a statement." Lily stared at the message. Her reflection stared back. Different now. Not unsure, not afraid. Aware. She typed. "I'll give it," then hit send. Outside, Marcus walked toward the terminal. No escort, no spectacle, just Sullivan, a few steps behind. Not leading, not guiding. Respecting distance, respecting position. Behind them, David Harper hurried to keep up. "Mr. Reynolds, we are prepared to offer a full settlement," he said quickly. "Immediate compensation, written apology, lifetime charter privileges." Marcus stopped, turned. The sudden halt forced Harper to stop mid-step, off balance, unprepared. "Do you think this is about money?" Marcus asked. The question wasn't loud, but it cut. Harper opened his mouth, closed it, because there was no good answer. Marcus held his gaze, just long enough, then turned back, continued walking, the message clear. This wasn't negotiable. Inside the terminal, phones were already ringing, screens lighting up, names being mentioned, clips being shared, the recording. 14 minutes, 32 seconds. It was out, and it was spreading, fast. On a screen in the corner of the operations office, the video played. Muted, but unmistakable. The moment, the slap, the silence after. People gathered, watched, didn't speak, because they didn't need to. The truth was already there. Unedited, unfiltered, unavoidable. Marcus walked past it without looking. He didn't need to see it again. He had lived it. Now, everyone else would too. By noon, the video had crossed every line it needed to cross. It started small, a single upload, A clean clip. No commentary. Just 14 minutes and 32 seconds of raw, uncut footage. The cabin, the voice, the bag hitting the floor, the hand rising, the crack of the slap, the silence after. Then it moved, from private inboxes to newsroom servers, from newsroom servers to internal chats, from internal chats to public feeds. Someone added captions, someone added context, someone added a headline. Billionaire slapped on his own aircraft, and just like that, it detonated. 600,000 views in the first hour, 2 million by the third, 5 million before sunset. Phones lit up across cities that had never heard of Marcus Reynolds. Now they had. In a downtown studio, Sandra Cole sat across from a bank of monitors, each screen tracking a different feed. Comments scrolled too fast to read. Shares climbed in real time. Editors moved behind her in tight, efficient circles. Voices low, urgent, focused. Audio clip is cleaner at minute 8, one producer said. Push that segment, another replied. That's the hook. Sandra didn't look away from the main screen. The moment played again. Brenda's voice, sharp and cutting. You don't belong here. The replay didn't soften it. It sharpened it. Do we have confirmation on prior complaints? Sandra asked. A researcher stepped in. 3 confirmed, all dismissed. Same manager signed off. Sandra nodded once. Add it to the piece, she said. Not speculation. Documented. The room moved faster. Because now it wasn't just a moment. It was a pattern. Across town, in a glass office that suddenly felt too exposed, Nathan Brooks stood with both hands braced against the edge of his desk, watching the same clip on a muted screen. Again, and again, and again. He had stopped counting. Each time it got worse. Not because the footage changed, because the context did. Every new detail layered over the last. Every headline sharper than the one before. He turned away, paced once, twice. His phone buzzed. He didn't need to look. He knew. Board members, investors, legal, press, all at once. He picked it up anyway. Voicemail after voicemail. Missed call after missed call. Then a message. We need a statement now. Another. Stock is down 7%. Another. Call me immediately. Nathan closed his eyes for a second. Just one. Then opened them. Decision time had already passed. Now it was damage control. Get legal in here, he said, voice tight, controlled, but no longer steady. An assistant moved instantly. Minutes later, the room filled. Lawyers, advisors, crisis managers, all talking at once. All trying to catch up to something that had already moved past them. We issue an apology, one said. Not enough, another replied. We need action. Terminate immediately, a third added. Too late, someone else muttered. The video's already out. Nathan raised a hand. The room went quiet. Not because he was calm, because he wasn't. Where is she? He asked. Brenda Collins has been notified, one of the lawyers said. Termination is being processed. Processed, Nathan repeated, the word landing wrong. The lawyer hesitated. Effective immediately, he corrected. Nathan nodded slowly, but it didn't settle anything, because this wasn't just about one person anymore. He turned back to the screen, paused the video at the moment of impact, her hand against his face. Frozen. Permanent. How did this happen? He asked. No one answered, because everyone in that room knew the truth. It hadn't just happened. It had been allowed. Back in her apartment, Brenda Collins sat on the edge of her couch, phone in her hand, screen glowing in a dim room that suddenly felt smaller than it ever had before. The video played. Again. And again. She had watched it too many times already, but she couldn't stop, because each time she looked for something, a moment, a detail, anything that might make it look different. It never did. Her voice, her words, clear, unfiltered, ugly, her hand, the slap, unmistakable, her breathing quickened, shallow, her thumb hovered over the screen, comments scrolled beneath the video, fast, relentless. She assaulted him. Fire her. This is exactly what racism looks like. 12 years and nobody did anything. Her stomach turned. She scrolled faster, worse, every line worse than the last. She stopped, locked the screen. But it didn't help, because it was already out there. Everywhere. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She stared at it. Let it ring. It stopped, then rang again. She answered this time. Hello? Ms. Collins, this is your attorney. Her breath caught. I saw the video, he continued. We need to talk immediately. I didn't, she started, but the words didn't come. Because even she had heard it, seen it. There was no version of that footage where she looked right. You don't speak to anyone else, the attorney said. No statements, no interviews, nothing. You let me handle this. Her grip tightened on the phone. I was defending myself, she said, but the conviction was gone. He moved first. Silence on the other end. Longer this time. Then, we'll discuss strategy, the attorney said carefully. But right now, you need to understand the situation. A pause. This is not good. The understatement hung there. Heavy. Final. The line clicked. Gone. Brenda lowered the phone slowly. Her hands shook. She looked around the apartment. Everything the same. Furniture. Walls. Pictures. Nothing had changed, except everything had. Back at the terminal, Marcus sat in a quiet conference room. The noise of the outside world filtered down to nothing. His phone rested on the table in front of him. Silent now, because he had turned it off. Across from him, Derek Williams closed a folder. It's moving faster than expected, he said. Marcus nodded. I know. Derek studied him. You're about to be very public, he added, whether you want to be or not. Marcus leaned back slightly, hands folded, calm. I don't care about being public, he said. I care about being clear. Derek nodded. That tracked. We've got leverage, Derek continued. But this isn't just leverage anymore. This is exposure. A beat. And exposure changes things. Marcus's gaze shifted briefly toward the window. People moving outside. Normal. Unaware. For now. Good, he said. The word settled, because that was the point. Not quiet resolution. Not private apology. Change. Real change. Derek closed the folder completely. Then we push, he said. Marcus didn't hesitate. We push. Outside, the story kept spreading. Faster, louder, bigger. And for the first time, it wasn't going to disappear. 3 weeks later, the courtroom was full before the doors even opened. Not crowded. Focused. Every seat taken by people who understood this wasn't just a case. It was a moment. Reporters lined the back wall, notebooks ready, cameras waiting outside. Legal teams moved in quiet, efficient steps, files in hand, voices low, controlled. The air carried that familiar weight, anticipation mixed with something sharper, accountability. Brenda Collins sat at the defense table, hands folded too tightly in front of her, posture rigid, eyes fixed forward like if she didn't look at anyone. None of this would be real. But it was. Her attorney leaned in, whispering something she nodded to without really hearing. The words passed through her, not landing anywhere. Across the room, Marcus Reynolds sat beside Derek Williams. No entourage, no performance, just presence. He wore the same thing he always did. Dark hoodie, simple jeans, nothing that tried to explain who he was. He didn't need it anymore. The room already knew. The judge entered. Everyone stood, then sat. The proceedings began. No theatrics, no wasted time. The prosecution moved first. Your Honor, the facts of this case are clear, documented, and uncontested, the prosecutor said, voice steady, precise. We will present direct video evidence of the defendant's actions, corroborated by witness testimony and official incident reports. No flourish, no exaggeration, just certainty. The screen flickered to life. The video began. 14 minutes, 32 seconds. No edits, no cuts. The cabin appeared on screen, quiet at first, then tightening as Brenda's voice cut through it again. The words landed harder in that room, not because they were louder, because there was nowhere for them to go. No escape, no reinterpretation, just truth. People shifted in their seats. Some leaned forward, others leaned back, but no one looked away. The moment came, the slap. The sound echoed through the courtroom exactly as it had in the cabin. Sharp, final, unmistakable. Then silence. The video ended. The screen went dark. The prosecutor didn't speak right away. He didn't need to. Call your first witness, the judge said. Lily Adams. She stood slowly, walked to the stand. Hands steady now, not shaking anymore. She took the oath, sat, and told the truth. Not dramatically, not emotionally, clearly, step by step, what she saw, what she heard, what actually happened. Her voice didn't break, because she wasn't trying to convince anyone. She didn't need to. The evidence had already done that. When she finished, she stepped down, returned to her seat, didn't look at Brenda, didn't look at Marcus. She didn't need to. Her part was done. Next came the captain's statement, read into the record, measured, direct, confirming protocol had not been followed, confirming the manifest had not been checked, confirming the situation had been mishandled from the start. Then, Brenda took the stand. Her attorney had prepared her. Stay calm, stay composed, show remorse, control the narrative. She tried. For the first few minutes it held, her voice steady, her posture controlled. I felt threatened, she said. I believed I was acting in self-defense. The words sounded rehearsed, because they were. The prosecutor stepped forward. No rush, no aggression. Just a question. Ms. Collins, can you explain to the court why you believed Mr. Reynolds did not belong in that seat? The room stilled. Brenda opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. He didn't look like. She stopped. The words caught. Because finishing that sentence would make everything undeniable. The silence stretched. 12 jurors watched. The judge watched. The entire room watched. Shah swallowed. But the sentence didn't come. It didn't need to. Everyone had already heard it. The truth sat there, fully formed, even without being spoken. The prosecutor nodded slightly. No further questions. The jury deliberated. 80 minutes. That was all it took. When they returned, the room stood again. The foreperson held the verdict. Voice steady, guilty, count 1, guilty, count 2, guilty. The words landed. Final, irreversible. Brenda didn't react. Not visibly. She just sat there, still, empty, like something inside her had already shut down before the verdict was read. The judge spoke, measured, controlled. 18 months probation, 200 hours of community service, $15,000 fine, permanent record. Each consequence placed carefully, deliberately. Not excessive, not lenient, just enough. Because the punishment wasn't just in the sentence, It was in everything that followed. Outside the courtroom, cameras flashed, microphones extended, voices called out. Marcus didn't stop, didn't speak. He walked through it all the same way he had walked through the terminal, calm, unhurried, untouched. Derek stayed close, managing, deflecting, controlling the noise. But Marcus didn't look back, because he wasn't focused on what ended. He was focused on what started. Months later, the impact was still unfolding. Skylux Aviation released the results of an independent audit. Patterns confirmed, complaints ignored, processes broken, people terminated, policies rewritten. The CEO stepped down. Publicly, officially, the company survived, but not unchanged, not untouched. Lily Adams never went back. She didn't have to. A new offer came within days. Senior position, higher pay, more responsibility. She accepted. Not because it was better, because it was earned. And she had chosen the moment that made it possible. Marcus Reynolds didn't change. Not really. He still wore the same clothes, still moved without announcement, still preferred to be underestimated. But one thing was different. He didn't stay silent anymore. The foundation he launched began quietly. Legal support, real cases, real people, stories that would have disappeared before, now documented, now defended. Because what happened on that aircraft wasn't rare. It was just visible, for once. And that made all the difference. Marcus gave one interview. Only one. Short, direct. When asked what mattered most, he didn't talk about the verdict, didn't talk about the company. He said one thing. If I hadn't recorded that moment, this would have been a different story. He paused, looked straight at the camera. And we all know how those stories usually end. The clip circulated. Quietly, powerfully. And then he went back to his life, because the point was never attention. It was impact. Real. Lasting. Unavoidable. And somewhere out there, someone watched that video, heard those words, felt that moment, and understood something they hadn't before. That silence isn't neutral. It's a choice, just like speaking up is. If this story meant something to you, take a second to like and subscribe, and drop 3 words in the comments that stayed with you.